The criminal code in Australia makes clear that any payments to a people smuggler to take people from one place to a foreign country is an act of people smuggling. So at face value, if the reports are true, there is a violation of the Commonwealth Criminal Code. However, most importantly, the consent of the Commonwealth Attorney-General is required before any prosecution could occur under that provision of the Criminal Code. And Senator Brandis, the Attorney-General, when asked on this matter yesterday, replied by saying it's academic, suggesting to me that he'd considered the matter and had come to some view that there would be no prosecution.
We'll leave the point of prosecution just to one side for a moment, just staying with the issue of where the laws have been broken. Does where it took place, does that matter? In whose waters? Would it have to be in Australian waters or just involving an Australian official?
No, the provisions of the Commonwealth Criminal Code apply to Australian citizens or persons who are resident in Australia.
But what if these people are security service personnel who seem to operate at a different level, if you like, and whose own employment contract seems to insulate them from such criminal action? Well,
Virginia, it needs to be made clear that any government official is bound by Australian law, but certain government officials enjoy certain immunities in terms of the way in which they conduct themselves. And also certain government officials are able to conduct themselves consistent with their official responsibilities and duties, such as defence officers and such as intelligence officers. So there's a broader reach for those persons. But the critical point is that Australian law applies, but I think that there's significant questions as to whether there would actually be any prosecution in this particular instance.
Yes, and that's what our conversation comes to now. So who exactly would bring the charges if they were to be brought?
Well, there'd need to be an investigation, presumably by the Australian Federal Police, and they would prepare a prosecution brief to the DPP. But ultimately, because of the political nature of a people smuggling crime, the legislation says that the Attorney-General has the responsibility to give their consent before any prosecution would ultimately occur before the courts.
So there are no international legal consequences here?
Oh no, that's not certainly the case. Australia, for example, is a party to the People Smuggling Protocol of 2000, to which Indonesia is also a party. That protocol, which is a treaty, creates a whole series of obligations upon Australia to work cooperatively with neighbouring states to disrupt people smuggling, to prosecute people smuggling. At face value, the alleged reported activities that Australia's engaged in are not in any way consistent with that particular protocol.
And so what sort of breach then does that create?
Well, it creates a breach whereby a country such as Indonesia could seek to challenge the legality of Australia's conduct. But whether Indonesia would go that far, I think, is also doubtful at the moment. We know that Indonesia's had significant concerns about various aspects of Operation Sovereign Borders, but to date has not sought to commence any legal action against those concerns.
The UNHCR has been making concerned noises about this. What's that body's role here?
Well, the UNHCR, of course, is always concerned about the plight of refugees and concerned about their well-being. Interestingly, and this is a point that does need to be noted here, the vessel was allegedly en route to New Zealand. There's no suggestion that an asylum claim was being made to Australia, or the vessel was seeking to reach Australia. And the New Zealand government has confirmed that they had clear knowledge that the boat was en route to New Zealand in this instance.
And why is that relevant?
Well, I think it creates a different distinction. We know that from time to time boats from Indonesia have sought to reach New Zealand. Whether the alleged payment was made in this particular instance because the boat was much more seaworthy, because it was more capable of reaching New Zealand, I can only speculate on that point, but I think it's a notable point of distinction from other cases that we're aware of.
There's a strong implication now that Labor did it while in government as well, or at least they haven't denied that. What does that mean then in terms of potential crimes being committed over a period of time?
Look, I can't comment on that because I'm not aware of the facts. What we do know, however, is that successive governments have sought to disrupt and deter people smugglers. Previous governments have certainly engaged in cooperative activities with the Indonesians to engage in those actions on the ground. In terms of these activities occurring on water, I have no knowledge of them, so I can't really comment.